All right, so that's the first part. That's called the light-dependent reactions, also referred to as the light reactions. Now we have the second part of photosynthesis, and that's the light-independent reactions, or also referred to as the Calvin cycle. Okay? When they just say light reactions, they're just referring to that first part. Okay? Now, in the old days, old school, they used to call it the dark reactions. You got light reactions, you must have dark reactions. No. All right? That's a misnomer. They don't use the dark reactions anymore. It's kind of old school. The reason why is because when you think of dark reactions, you're thinking, oh, that doesn't use sunlight. No, we need, this happens during the sunlight too. So that's why they don't really use the dark reaction, the word dark reactions. Does that make sense? All right? So this is the light-independent reactions, or better known as Calvin cycle. Okay? This now occurs in the stroma, not in the thylakoids. So now the ATP and the NADPH leave the thylakoids, and now it's going to the stroma to feed into the Calvin cycle. Okay? This is going to use the energy of ATP and NADPH that was created by the reactions I was just showing you. And this ATP and NADPH is what's going to power this Calvin cycle. Okay? Now there's three major steps, kind of like, I wouldn't call it the same thing as the citric acid cycle or Krebs cycle, but there's a lot of steps that go on in all there. All right? There's like about 10 different steps. I kind of broke it down into three things. And you don't have to, again, worry about the names of the structures or the enzymes there. There are a few I want you to know. There's actually a very important enzyme I want you to know too. We'll get to it. But we have three parts to it overall. We have carbon fixation, trying to make carbon dioxide usable and put it into something we can get something out of. All right, I'll show you that. We have that wonderful reduction reactions, and then we got to regenerate something called RUBP. Okay? RUBP is a 5-carbon structure. Well, now think about this. This is a 5-carbon structure, and we're really going to start off with that. But you can't really make sugar unless you have a 6-carbon structure. So where are we going to get that extra carbon to make this 5-carbon structure into a 6-carbon structure? Carbon dioxide, right? That has 1 carbon. So that's why plants need carbon dioxide to make sugar. So the first part is carbon fixation, which is basically going to make that carbon dioxide usable so that we can make sugar out of it. Okay? Once it's fixed, it's usable. Well, there's this wonderful enzyme called ribisco, which really has a longer name, but everyone calls it ribisco. Okay? It's an enzyme that's going to cause, to catalyze this carbon fixation. And there's some thought that ribisco is the most abundant enzyme on Earth. We have all those plants that are going to be going through photosynthesis, and there's more plants than there is humans, right? Anyway, what it does is this. It's going to take this 5-carbon structure, which is RUBP. Just know it as that. Don't worry about what it turns into or what the real name. Okay? And it's going to combine with carbon dioxide. So it's taking a 5-carbon structure and a 1-carbon structure. It's going to make a 6-carbon structure. But that 6-carbon structure goes through another process and it breaks it in half. And it turns it into 2 3-carbon structures known as PGA. Okay? Again, I'm not going to hold you, just know it as PGA and call it a day. Okay? There's a long-ass thing you really don't want to know about. Okay? If you're interested in that, take photosynthesis or agriculture or something like that. But you don't need to worry about But the idea is to take a 5-carbon structure and a 1-carbon structure, make 6, but Rubisco is going to do this, and it will also split that 6-carbon structure into 2 3-carbon structures. Okay? So if this is a Calvin cycle, all right, what's happening here is that RUBP is going to combine with carbon dioxide, go through a series of reactions, but eventually going to get this DPG. Okay, it has a longer name than that, but that's what that goes into. So you're going to have 3 carbon structures now. You're following so far? Okay? Now, this 3-carbon structure is usable. We can do something with this. So now the carbon dioxide is fixed. We can now do something with it. Now we have a set of reduction reactions. Okay? PGA gets reduced to something called G3P. Okay? This is where the ATP and the NADPH is going to be needed from the like reactions, from the reactions that we talked about before. This is where they're coming in. The G3P is used to make sugar, glucose, or sucrose, or whatever you're going to make, carbohydrates. All right? So what's going to happen here, using ATP and NADPH, they will get reduced and is able to take the PGA and convert it to G3P. It's still 3 carbon structures, but it's a different kind. It's adding some things to it and over there. From here, it does a lot of other reactions, but from the G3P, which is very important, it can actually turn into glucose. All those steps that we did, the light reactions, well, that was making the energy, it's making the gasoline for your car from home to college. So think of it like that. I just came up with that. I don't know if that works. But the light reactions is making the gas. The Calvin cycle is that you're going to use that gas to go from home to college. And that's what we're doing here. All right? The first part was to make ATP and NADPH, but then that is going to be used to make glucose in the Calvin cycle. Then the third part is that we got to make that RUBP again, so that more carbon dioxide can come in. So the G3P, after it's been making all the glucose, we have enough glucose, now the G3P can be converted back to RUBP, making it a full cycle. And ATP is needed to make this, or to produce this, right, power. So what's happening here is that this G3P will do a series of steps, which I'm not going to hold you to know, and it turns back into RUBP. But we're going to need ATP to do that. Okay. And you got a full cycle. Okay? Another way of looking at it, again, this is the chloroplasts over here. The light reactions are going to make the ATP and NADPH so that the Calvin cycle can use that power to make the sugar. Now the sugar can be put into the mitochondria or glycolysis or whichever to make ATP for the rest of the cell. And you can see what happens here, the different steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. And that's it. All right? Again, if you don't know cellular respiration, you won't be ready for photosynthesis because we're going to be using a lot of stuff you learn from cellular respiration to deal with photosynthesis. So you can look here, this is a summary slide of doing the whole thing. Here's the light reactions. Again, in this book, in this picture, it's called the dark reactions, but keep in mind, it happens during the light too. But this is your Calvin cycle. So in the light reactions, it's taking light and water. Oxygen will be spit out, but more importantly, ATP and NADPH is being made to run the Calvin cycle. The Calvin cycle is going to get carbon dioxide and convert it to glucose. All of this happens inside the chloroplast. Different parts of the chloroplast, but inside. The oxygen and glucose come out of the chloroplast into the cytoplasm, and the oxygen even goes further and goes out in the air. All right? And this one I kind of showed you before, showing the same thing. The two parts. There's the whole reaction. All right? Notice that that's photosynthesis. The cellular respiration is going that way. We can only do that. Plants are amazing because they can do this. Because this is your making sugar. See, in humans, in cellular respiration, we have to assume you get the sugar. So this is just to make sugar. So what he's asking, that's a good question. So you have photosynthesis. Okay? There's two parts to it. We have the light reactions, and we're going to have the Calvin cycle. Let me know if I'm losing you so far. I should be. Okay? In the light reactions, you're going to make ATP and NADPH.
Could they just use that ATP instead of...
Watch. You can't. Okay? Because in cellular respiration, so respiration, you're going to, and there's a lot of parts to it, I don't need to go on that way. But the thing is, what you start off with, glucose. What's going to happen here is that you're going to get glucose and turn that into ATP for cell to use. All right? Where are we getting this glucose? Well, this ATP and this NADPH needs to go here. All right? out glucose. All right? So if we don't have the ATP to go through here, you're not going to get glucose, and the plant isn't going to put any glucose into the cellular respiration. Does that make sense? So you're asking, why can't the ATP over? Well, you wouldn't have this if you don't have glucose. You have to make the glucose. Does that make sense? This glucose in plants is coming from these two reactions. So we need energy to make glucose. Now the glucose will go through cellular respiration. If plants can walk around and eat other plants, the plants wouldn't need this. Does that make sense? It's a good question. I want you to actually see how this is all put together. All right? It needs to make glucose. In animals, we go through here. That's it. We don't have this system. Does that make sense? Do you see where the ATP is being used? You sure? You have that look like, but... Yeah, no, I want you to ask. No, because if you have the question, I'm sure the other shy people have the same thing. You sure?
Yeah.
Did I make that? If
plants can make a little bit of ATP in the land area, why even bother making it?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Because, like, you know, the light reactor, right? They have the ATP synthase, so
Right.
they're making ATP. There's no need to go to the Calvin cycle, then glucose, then make ATP again.
I don't think they make enough, because think about this, ATP over here, we don't know how much it keeps on making it, but in the dark, when it's dark, they won't be able to do it. So they've got to make glucose, because how much ATP can you get out of cellular respiration? A whole potload.
38.
Yeah. Here, you might get a lot during the daytime, but at nighttime or in your house, you're just not. So they got to make the glucose because you get a whopping amount. Good question. You're right. Do you see what he's asking? This is the question that people should be asking. If it has the power, plants have the power to make ATP, then why does it even need glucose? And it's because it doesn't make enough ATP to sustain the plants. But if they can make glucose, boy, you get a lot of ATP, whether during the day or at nighttime.
You do realize that plants also have cellular respiration. So that's where they get a lot of their ATP.
Or that would be enough to just...
No. So again, this happens in the chloroplast. This happens in the mitochondria. The mitochondria, and this is the chloroplast. Sorry. It's a good question. That's what I'm looking for. A nice targeted question like that.
Plants provide us with food to eat and oxygen to breathe. They perform this amazing feat by the process of photosynthesis. Let's take a closer look. Photosynthesis requires carbon dioxide, which diffuses into the leaf through small pores and then enters the cells. Inside the cell, carbon dioxide diffuses into the chloroplasts, where photosynthesis takes place. Chloroplasts use energy from light to transform carbon dioxide and water into sugar and oxygen. Zooming into a chloroplast, we see these flattened membranous sacs called thylakoids. Here, light energy is converted to chemical energy in the first phase of photosynthesis, the light reactions. The two green structures you see here are photosystems, large complexes of proteins and chlorophyll that capture light energy. An electron transport chain connects the two photosystems. Notice the small mobile electron carriers that shuttle electrons from one large complex to another. Now let's take a closer look at the steps of the light reactions. The photosystem on the left absorbs light energy, exciting electrons that enter the electron transport chain. Electrons are replaced with electrons stripped from water, creating oxygen as a byproduct. The energized electrons flow down the electron transport chain, releasing energy that is used to pump hydrogen ions, the blue balls, into the thylakoid. In the photosystem on the right, light energy excites electrons, and this time the electrons are captured by an electron carrier molecule, NADPH. The high concentration of hydrogen ions inside the thylakoid powers ATP synthase, producing ATPs. The light reactions in the thylakoid have produced two energy products, ATP and NADPH, that will now power the production of sugar in the Calvin cycle. The Calvin cycle takes place outside the thylakoids in the stroma, the thick fluid of the chloroplast. At the beginning of the cycle, carbon dioxide molecules combine with molecules called RUBP. The resulting molecules go through a series of reactions powered by ATP and NADPH from the light reactions. Sugar molecules known as G3Ps are produced. Most of the G3Ps are rearranged back into RUBPs that will begin the Calvin cycle again. But the important product of photosynthesis is the remaining G3P sugar. Some G3Ps are used to build glucose, which can combine into starch or cellulose. Still other G3Ps form sucrose. And some of the sugar is broken down by cellular respiration using oxygen in the plant's own mitochondria, generating ATPs that can power other work of the plant. Excess oxygen diffuses out of the leaf through the pores, while more carbon dioxide enters. With three simple ingredients, carbon dioxide, water, and light, plants produce sugar and oxygen by photosynthesis, powering plant metabolism and ultimately providing your fuel as well.
All right, so let's do this carbon cycle. We kind of talked about it throughout the pattern, like ocean acidification and things like that. But now let's put it all together. Now that we've dealt with the full cycle of photosynthesis and cellular respiration, all right, you know about this. Carbon dioxide is exchanged between the air and the ocean. You've seen that. Okay, so we're trying to recycle this carbon. Where is it all coming from? Because nothing gets destroyed or nothing gets created. So this is where the carbon's going. Sea creatures build their shells from dissolved carbonates, right? We talked about that. All right. Carbonates from the shells of sea creatures form limestone, which is kind of like the bed of the ocean, right? The bed of the ocean. All right. We also have plants that remove the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, that take it in. Animals eat the plants, releasing carbon dioxide into the air and water. Ancient animals and plants eventually become fossil fuels, right? That's what our fuels are. And you know, when we burn gasoline and things like that, all of that gasoline, that oil, coal, all of that came from old plants, basically. That's what that comes from, okay? And humans burn fossil fuels, releasing even more carbon dioxide. So why are we making a big stinker about this if we're not creating, if we're not destroying carbons? Well, the carbons were found in the ground. That's where it's pretty safe down there, so to say, right? But when you start putting it into the air, now we're making the atmosphere thicker and thicker, causing global warming. So it's more like leave the stuff down there. It's not harming anyone. We need it to survive for now, but that's why they got to look at other sources. Okay? So this kind of puts the whole thing into everything I just talked about, the limestone and where the oil is coming from, photosynthesis. It's all there about the carbon cycle. It's being used and how we're using it and how it's changing and stuff. All right? Questions about that?
Could a carbon atom that was once part of Albert Einstein be in you? All living things need to take in carbon-containing molecules to fuel their activity and build their cells. This is true for busy students and for all organisms. Let's look at how carbon atoms move through the carbon cycle in the Arctic tundra. Carbon atoms from carbon dioxide are incorporated into living things by producers, such as this plant. Carbon dioxide enters a leaf, moves into a cell, and goes into a chloroplast. There, in the process of photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is used to make sugar molecules. The sugars can be used to build larger carbon-containing molecules, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. In this way, carbon that was in the air is now part of the plant. When a plant is eaten by an herbivore, or primary consumer, carbon in plant tissue enters the primary consumer's digestive system. There, plant molecules are broken down. These small molecules are then used by the primary consumer to make larger molecules for building its own tissues. In this way, some of the carbon that was in a plant becomes carbon in a primary consumer. Similarly, when a primary consumer is eaten by a higher-level consumer, some of the carbon in the primary consumer is incorporated into the higher-level consumer. Carbon-containing molecules in dead plant material, animal feces, and dead organisms are taken up by decomposers, such as fungi and bacteria. Decomposers break down these materials and incorporate some of the carbon atoms into their own bodies. We have now seen how carbon moves from carbon dioxide to producers, to primary consumers, to higher-level consumers, and to decomposers. How does carbon get back to the atmosphere? During cellular respiration, carbon-containing molecules are broken down, and ATP is made. Carbon dioxide is released as a byproduct and returned to the atmosphere by producers, consumers, and decomposers. Overall, this return of carbon dioxide by cellular respiration is closely balanced by its removal from the atmosphere through photosynthesis. The global carbon cycle involves living things on land and in rivers, lakes, and oceans. And, by the way, considering the huge number of carbon atoms in each person and how quickly carbon atoms move through the carbon cycle, there is almost certainly a little of Einstein in each of us.